Welcome back to the Talk Tonight. Don't be alarmed if this year's standardized test scores in math and English drop steeply. That's the warning tonight ahead of tomorrow's release of those test scores. The U.S. Secretary of Education says the tests our students took last spring will establish a new baseline measurement of student learning. Those tests were harder than in past years in order to align standards with the Common Core, which most states have adopted now. The proportion of students passing the test could drop, they say, by as much as 30%. Michael Benny joins us now for the Talk Tonight. And I don't think this comes as a surprise to many people. I mean, parents have been, saying this for months and months now.
Yeah, they've been saying, I think from the parents' perspective, it's been too much testing. You know what I mean? You did a series of reports on this back when the tests were administered and parents were saying, no, Johnny, no, Susie, just put your pencil down and sort of opt out. So that was the big story then. Behind the scenes, what we sort of haven't lifted the veil on is, I think, the fact that school administrators and teachers have known this whole past school year, boy, these kids, some of them are not going to do well on these. They are considerably harder than in years past.
And I spoke with some superintendents at the time that I did that series, and they said, it's sort of like ripping a Band-Aid off. This year is going to be really tough for these kids, not only taking the test, but then in the results that we're all going to have to swallow when we get them at the end of the summer. Hopefully, they were hoping that next year it might be a little bit less painful. But again, tell that to the parents who oppose these tests tremendously.
Yeah, and tell it to the teachers whose livelihood now and whose evaluations are to some degree tied to the yearly exams that are given to their student populations. So this is, ripping the Band-Aid off, that's an example that we know how much that hurts. I think it's like turning the Titanic around in some of these districts, particularly in the urban districts where the student population is challenged so greatly even before they walk in the door.
For its part, the state education department has always said, listen, we need a barometer, we need a metric, we need something that we can look at on pencil and paper and say to parents and to the community, this is what your kids are learning, and we know that they're getting a good education. When I asked the question, well, if not this, what? Not many people had any ideas. They just said, well, something needs to change. We're just not really quite sure what that is.
Yeah, it's interesting that the Secretary of Education, who was down in New York City for an event, sort of did this today, dramatically lowering expectations. It's one thing for an individual superintendent, I suppose, to come out at a meeting and say, look, we're sort of braced for the scores to go down. You're talking about the president's guy on education coming to our state saying, hold on, folks, because you're going to hear some news tomorrow about how all your kids didn't do so hot. And what he really was doing, I think, was truly lowering those expectations.
It was a preemptive strike, really. And so now the question remains, what are school districts going to do? What will the New York State Education Department and all the other education departments across the country who have adopted these Common Cores, what will they do with this information now? Once we see that the test scores aren't coming in well, are they going to opt to, not necessarily opt these students out, but maybe change things a little bit for next year?
I don't think there's anything from Albany coming down to local districts that says we're considering some dramatic shift in how we're going to implement this. It is going to be test a student in the beginning of the year on material that they may not have a clue about. Test them at the end of the year on that same material, and let's see.
Yeah.
Did that kid in 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, whatever it is, did they learn the material that we have decided is the most important stuff to learn? It's going to take years to do this.
I have a little girl who's going to be starting kindergarten in a couple of years, and I can't tell you how many teachers and administrators have said, you won't believe what she has to know at the age of 5. Things have changed dramatically from the time that you and I were kids.
Oh yeah, I was looking over some of the practice tests the other day. Some kids, they're just given a political cartoon in like 4th or 5th grade, and I thought, did I know what a political cartoon was in 4th or 5th grade? I don't know.
Things have changed.
I can't remember. But
all right, Michael, thanks so much.
Got to do something.
Yeah, we're going to continue our conversation in just a minute and switch gears a bit. Organizers of a rally for a disabled man who claims he was roughed up and injured by police for refusing to sit down on a Centro bus are now calling for an investigation into the actions of the police. This as the district attorney considers dropping the charges. Will it happen? Should it happen? We'll discuss it coming up.